everyone, and you're very welcome from my end as well to the event. So let's talk about how we make buildings smarter, and let's start by saying that what is smart buildings really? So it says in our logo that we make buildings smarter. Now, however, this is a 30 years ago that somebody came up with the term smart buildings. So what I'm here to say today is that maybe there's something more than only smart buildings, and maybe you can do a little bit differently than what people thought it was 30 years ago. So here's an example of a customer that we have. We are doing a project for a company headquarters in the Nordics, and they are very smart, very advanced. They have 20 different smart systems in that building. They have roughly 40,000 data points, 780 different individual control parameters. They have about 28 different system and service providers, and a lot of people managing that building. So if you want to call that smart building management, you can. We would argue that there's a little bit better way to do this, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about that after my presentation. But what we are saying about the market is that if you look at the real estate of today, the real estate industry is becoming much more of an industry that is driven by data management. It's all about big data. It's gonna be all about IoT. How do you interact with buildings? And especially, it's gonna be a two-way industry. So if the traditional way of looking, how do I manage my buildings, it might look something like this. So you have your building, you have your specialist for HVAC processes, you have your security guys, you have your maintenance people, you look at your different systems, your different solutions, you are experts in all of these different things, and at the end of the day, the property managers, the owners, the asset managers are a little bit wondering what is going on in my buildings, what is going on in my portfolios. And especially now when there's a lot more data coming into this business, you can imagine that the traditional way of having two guys in a van going around my portfolios and looking at if my air conditioning is good or not, it might not be that smart. So what we are trying to say here is that we think that the new way of looking at smart buildings should be from technology-driven to actually increasing the value of your real estate through applications, through big data management, through IoT, and all the buzzwords that you can think of. And let me show you how we do this. If you look at the traditional building of today, and especially if it's a portfolio, there's a lot of hassle on the left-hand side of this picture for you guys. So in one building, in one portfolio, you might have, like I just said, 25 different systems, different players somebody's doing energy management for you, somebody's doing security controls, somebody's doing RFID, location devices, and things like that in your buildings. What we are saying is that if you can manage all that building big data, you can do a lot of new things with that, and especially you can create a lot of new controls to your portfolio. So looking at, as an example, looking at the demand response. Well, what is demand response? Well, you can use your facilities now as part of your virtual network, a little bit like what Hans was just saying here. Actually make money using your buildings as an energy storage, as a part of the energy network, rather than only a cost for using the energy. And I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that as well, but that's one aspect of how you can maybe use your assets, your real estates, a little bit better. Now, if you look at the Nuuka approach to this, we are saying that we can collect all the building big data into one. We can create your different type of apps for different people, different users in the industry. So maybe you are a maintenance people who want to look at your maintenance alarms through our apps. Maybe you are a real estate owner who wants to look at the revenue from my portfolio or my utility costs. Maybe you are a tenant in a nice building like this, and you want to make sure that the indoor air conditions are good, and things like that. But when you manage all of the data in your real estate, and I know Eric will talk a lot more about this later on today, you can do a lot of different things, a lot of new things in this industry. And I just found out yesterday on the airport when I was waiting for my flight to Stockholm, an article by Deloitte about the workplace of the future with the Edge 2.0. And I know Eric will talk a little bit more about the Edge later today. But I'm just trying to say here that we are not the only ones looking at how do we make building industry, how do we make real estate industry digitalized, more modern, more manageable, more optimized. So kind of what our value creation examples are is, like I just mentioned, the buildings as virtual utilities. So if you think about today's electricity markets, the energy markets in general, especially with all the renewables, there are a lot of things you can do with your real estate by also starting earning money from the power companies, not only paying money to the power companies, as an example. There are a lot of smart features, like we work with OVG in a couple of day projects, and one of the things you might want to offer to your tenants, if you're a real estate owner, is the possibility to react and to affect the facility they are working in. I'll give you an example. So let's say that you are working in a building like this. It's an office building, you have 10 floors. Maybe you now come into the office and we see that, okay, everybody's connected by their phones to the backbone, to the internet system. We know that on the 6th floor there is 2 people, on the 8th floor there are 100 people. Still the air conditioning, the heating, everything is exactly the same on those 2 floors. It doesn't make any sense. If there's only 2 people in the 6th floor and 100 people on the 9th floor, you might want to adjust your air conditioning or your heating or things like that accordingly. So these type of things you can do if you manage the data. And of course that then creates more value, more better indoor air conditions to your tenants, but especially you as an owner also cost optimization. So what we are saying is that not only can you reduce your costs by using our solutions, but more importantly, actually increase the property value by getting better, I shouldn't say better, longer tenants, long-term tenants into your building, happier customers, and in that sense also reduced management burden and of course reduced running costs. So let me tell you a little bit about what we are as a company. So we have been in this business now for almost 5 years, 4 years. We today have roughly 100 buildings that are using our technology. It's growing pretty exponentially the past couple of years. Especially the drivers in this business for us are the comfortable working and living environments, and how do you make your buildings better suitable for your tenants, for your pleasant working environments and so on. Of course, the sustainability and green profiles are very important, and of course the cost savings, especially in complex large portfolios. If you look at the recent customer examples for us, we now have 3 projects going on in China, where we are looking at the hospital, at a hotel, and a supermarket. We are also doing, and Eric will talk more about something we do with OVG. We are doing a major corporate headquarters in the US with them, where we collect all the data again in this big campus area to make it more optimal for the people to work in that open space office. We have customers in the power company industry and of course in the supermarkets sector. So for us, the technology is the same, even though the use of the commercial building is a little bit different. So let me show you a couple of examples of what is it exactly that we do. So the first example is from OVG. So OVG, and you're going to hear a lot more about this later on from Erik Ypel's presentation. But OVG is the builder of the building called The Edge in Amsterdam, which is the world's smartest and most sustainable building has won several awards, and I'm not going to go into detail of that because Eric will talk to you about that. But what we are now doing with OVG is that we are doing another building with them in the US. It's a corporate headquarter building. It's a campus area where our role is to collect all that energy sustainability, all the HVAC process data, and bring it in a usable format to the actual tenants of the building. It can look something like this in the future. So if you look at this is a smart building score as an example. So maybe you as a real estate owner want to look at your buildings according to these different kind of scoring. So it doesn't matter to us what type of a scoring you want to use. This is just an example of what it could look like. Maybe you want to see that my portfolio in this part of the country in Sweden is a little bit different than somewhere else, and you want to compare them and do all these type of things. When you have all the data, you can basically do after that different type of benchmarking and different type of reporting that you feel that you want to do. Another kind of a practical example is that I know that here in Sweden, and especially where I come from in Finland, the kind of the indoor air issue is a huge thing for us. So if you look at, I mean, I have 4 kids. So what I would really like to know is that when my kids go to their daycare places, is the indoor air quality good or not? So what we do with the company called Lemminkäinen in Finland is that they built these daycare places for, I think they've now built roughly 20 in Finland, and they continue building these. In every daycare place, they have a sensors for CO2 and other chemicals and indoor air conditions. We provide an app where basically the parents, when they drop off their kids to a daycare place, can see is the indoor air conditions good or not, on how is it developing during the day and things like that. Again, for us, exactly the same technology, just another application to use the same, what we call building big data. Then I promised to tell you a little bit about how we can actually make the power company pay us, rather than we always as real estate owners paying the power company. Now, unfortunately, I need to do a little bit of an academic 2 minutes about how this works. So for those of you who don't know, I mean, I didn't know anything about this, 5 years ago, or 3 years ago. So, if you look at these 2 graphs, the green one is the consumption, so the electricity or energy consumption curve without demand response management. Of course, the red one. And the green one is then when you do demand response. So why is this important? Well, this is important because typically in the Nordics, so we are the same energy area, the power grid area. So the maximum normal capacity doesn't include all the peaks of your consumption. So in Finland, this is, if you look at I'm pretty sure it's the same in Sweden. So in Finland, that usually happens in January on Saturday night at 6 when everybody turns on their sauna at the same time. The power companies don't like that. They don't like that at all, because for this little peak, they need to turn on their reserve power. They might need to turn on really old-fashioned fossil fuel power plants and things like that. So if you can do something for these peak hours, the power companies and the grid operators are willing to pay you money for that. So what you can now do if you own a lot of real estate, 40% of the global energy consumption is for real estate in the world, roughly 40%. So you can imagine that this is, in our understanding, this real estate market is an area where not a lot of optimization in terms of virtual energy networks and so on. It's really not happening yet. There are a lot of companies who are now coming into this business, either with district heat or with electricity consumption. But if you do this, you need some sort of a tool, some sort of a software to collect all the data in real time from your energy consumption that you can then report back to the grid operators and the power companies. And if you can use your assets as an energy storage in this case, and then lower those peaks, there's a lot of money to be gained as a real estate owner. So I'm just saying, you should look into this, because you can really make your real estates as a revenue stream in this case. All right, so of course all the presentations need to end with call to action, so I definitely want to sell you something. So what I would like to say is that we are here. Susan is based here in Stockholm, and we would be very happy to do pilots with you, so we can prove the value for the real estate owners in this room that what can you gain, what kind of value can we provide to you as Nuuka in this building optimization, building big data management. We would do a pilot. We can do a free of charge pilot for you for your pilot site, resulting in a pre-study, and then based on that pre-study, we can do a very detailed proposal for those pilot buildings and for your whole portfolio. Because we are a little bit behind the schedule, I think I'm gonna just end here. If there's any questions or comments. No? All right.